Hey, hi everyone, this is Kalyan. Hope so you are staying safe and preparation is going good as well. Today we're going to discuss one of the important chapter of paper 4 and paper 60 of CA final, which is the prevention of money laundering act 2002. The reason behind me saying this as the important chapter is in recent past ICA is asking somewhere around 6 to 9 marks from paper 4, and there are higher chances that it might be asked for around 20 marks in paper 60. So if you are thorough with this chapter, you can easily score not less than 20 marks in your CFNL. So basically I divided this chapter into the 5 divisions. First one is the definition, second one is the obligation of the reporting entity, third one what if the property is suspected to be the proceeds of the crime, the fourth is the appellate tribunal, constitution of appellate tribunal, constitution of the special courts, and what are the powers of the directors, and the international PMLA, which involves the data sharing between the foreign companies, foreign countries, and the Indian countries. That is exchange of information what required by the foreign government by the Indian government, and information required by the Indian government by the foreign government. And the miscellaneous topics like the punishment for false information or failure to furnish the information, and other topic like recovery of the penalty, etc. I would like to share information. I would be recording 2 to 3 videos of this chapter. Reason being, you can easily revise the concepts which are not clear. It will be of 10 to 15 marks, 15 minutes or 20 minutes hardly. So you can listen to them at your leisure time. And also I want to share an information that I won't be giving any material. I would be sharing with you the handwritten notes or the handwritten charts, so that there is no need for you to change any other material. You can once you are done with these lectures, you can easily go through the material you have been using and solve the question bank. It's enough, no need to change the material. So what is the meaning of money laundering? Money laundering is nothing but the conversion of the illegal money into legal money. It is in the basic language. And some of you might be thinking how it is different from the black money. Black money is nothing but legitimate money which is concealed from the tax authorities, that is not paying the taxes. But when it comes to money laundering, it is a money used or the output of a crime which is thereafter converted into legal money. So we'll be going to the exact definition. What is meant by money laundering? Money laundering is any process or activity connected with the process of crime where there is acquisition, the possession, concealment, projecting the property as an untainted property. So we'll be decoding this definition. First of all, it is nothing but when a crime is being made and the money received from there will be acquired, and any property will be acquired, and then it will be taken into possession. If someone is trying to see whether what is this property, then we will try to conceal, that is we will try to hide. And if someone is questioning us whether it is a property purchased from the legitimate money, then we are projecting that property as untainted property, that is it is purchased from the legal money. If you want any mnemonic, it is APCP, process or activity involving of APCP, and which is connected with the proceeds of the crime. And what do you mean by the proceeds of the crime? Proceeds of the crime means the property directly or indirectly as a result of the criminal activity as per the schedule offense. And not all the schedule offense are treated as the money laundering. Here, as per the schedule given in the schedule offense, part A and part B of 1 crore or more, and part C are treated as schedule offense. And also based on these schedules, the imprisonment is made. You can clearly see if the scheduled offense is the para 2, the maximum imprisonment is of 10 years, but when it comes to the others, the maximum is of 7 years. So ultimately the imprisonment is ranging from minimum 3 years for all the cases and 10 years if it is as per the para 2, which is narcotic and psychotropic drugs, and other than para 2 and part B and part C, it is maximum 7 years. And also a point to be noted here that the offenses under PMLA are the cognizable offense, that is non-bailable, but there are a particular exceptions where the party can be eligible to obtain the bail, and the cases are when the person is less than 16 years and the person is the woman or the sick or infirm, and the value of offense is less than 1 crore. In these cases, these they can be eligible to apply for the bail, and bail might be given. And what is meant by placement? See here, there are illegal funds, will be breaking it into pieces. It is called the placement, and these funds will be injected through financial systems, and shares or gold or any FD or any other property will be purchased, and later they are sold, and the ultimate the sale proceeds will be integrated again through a fund. In this fund, we can clearly see the illegal funds along with the legal funds will be integrated, so that, and the taxes, everything will be paid, so that the person, if anyone is questioning, it will be hard, it will be tedious work for the government to exactly say whether these are proceeds of the crime. So the ultimate theme of this is, if the government will be trying to stop the money laundering, or if money laundering has already happened, it will confiscate the property which are the proceeds of the crime. So with this we are done with the first topic, which is the definitions. We have covered the what is meant by money laundering and the offense of money laundering, and what are the scheduled offenses, what are the proceeds of the crime, what is the cognizable offense, or the steps involved in the placements in the PMLA, which is the placement, the layering, integration, and punishment under PMLA. And second one will be, what are the obligations of the reporting entity. Reporting entity are nothing but the financial institutions where through which the money will be used, like the banks, the share markets, or the NBFCs, etc. So these are all the obligations of the reporting entity, that are the banks and the financial institutions. A point to be noted here that everything need to be confidential. It is also one of the obligation of the banking companies. And the first obligation is verification of the identity of the clients and the beneficial owners through use of the other authentication, like the other OTP. And next one is offline verification using the other, like by taking the copy of the Aadhaar, and or if Aadhaar is not possible, for example for the non-residents, it will be through the passports or any other official documents like the driving license, etc. Once the verification is made, it need to maintain all the records. So we can clearly see, if a transaction is happened, then it need to be maintained for not less than 5 years. And also the documents evidencing the identification of the clients and the beneficial owners. See, we can clearly see the client's data is always available with the bank, because we have taken already the Aadhaar card or any other by using the KYC. But the beneficial owners, we don't know, it might be changing from the time to time. So we need to take the details of the reporting entity, need to take the details, and should be maintained for not less than 5 years from the date of transaction. If the relationship between the client and the banker or the reporting entity is completed, then the same to be maintained for the period of 5 years from the date of termination of the relation between the client and the entity and the reporting entity, the entity and the client. And furnishing of information to the director. The reporting entity are required to furnish the information to the director only if the particular transaction exceeds a particular value, and also if the director is asking for any particular information, then the reporting entities are obliged to furnish the information asked by him. And also, the new obligation for the reporting entity as per the amendment is enhanced due diligence. So how it is different from the maintenance of records of furnishing information? Enhanced due diligence is nothing but verification of the client or the beneficial owner cannot be identified, then the reporting entities shall not perform the transaction. However, the transactions which for which these rules shall be applied will be given by the director or the government from the time to time. For example, if a customer is depositing a 1 lakh rupee and he is not submitting his PAN, then the reporting entity shall not deposit such amount and shall cancel the transaction. The reason being, there the identity of a person is not identified clearly, so the reporting entities have an option to cancel the transaction. We'll be going to the text. The enhanced due diligence prior to the commencement of the specific transaction. Specific transaction is not mentioned anywhere in the act. It will be changed from time to time. Here, verification of the identity of the client using the Aadhaar or say any other government official documents, and also the beneficial owner. If cannot be identified, then shall not perform the transaction. The ownership, the financial position, also the source of fund of the client and such other measures need to be identified. For example, if he is taking the 1 crore, for example at 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs of amount, and he will be furnishing the PAN, but we need to get to know the details of the funds also. There is nowhere mentioned particularly whether it is 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, but for example we'll be taking that the government has capped the 10 lakhs as the specified transaction, then the banker can reject the transaction. And if so, we are done with the obligations of the reporting entity. They are the verification of the identity, maintenance of records, furnishing of information, and enhanced due diligence. Important reason being it is amended for the specific transactions. Nowhere specified the specific transactions means it may be the quantum or the nature of the transactions. For example, cash to specified limit, or transferring from one person to one person is specified limit as such, but it will be as amended or as given by the official gazette by the government from time to time. It is yet to be given, and as per the exam, from the exam's perspective, it was not given the what is specified transaction. So if the question is asking or stating that this is the specified transaction, then we need to quote this particular provision and write which was learned by us. And next thing we're gonna discuss is, what if the property is suspected to be proceeds of crime? Basically, we need to know how is the flow within which the confiscation will be taken. For example, here the first stage is provisional attachment, then the adjudication and taking the possession, and third one is the confiscation. We need to know clear idea who is the authority and for how much period of time, and whether interest is affected or not. If you know this clearly, there is nothing to be learned or mugged up. For example, if the after provisional attachment, if the authority thinks whether if it is not in the proceeds of the crime, then they will release the property. Again, if the confiscation is done by the trial by the special court, if they think that the property is not the proceeds of the crime, they will release. So if the party is unable to prove that the concerned property is not the proceeds of the crime, then shall be treated as a proceeds of crime, and it shall not be given back to the concerned party. So we'll be going through that chart. So first First thing is the provisional attachment. The director or any other officer not below the rank of the deputy director has the reasons to believe in writing. Note the point here, it is in writing. Only writing shall be allowed. In writing, has the reasons to believe that the person having in the possession of the process of the crime and such proceeds are likely to be concealed or transferred, which results in frustration of the proceeds of the crime, that is unable to identify the proceeds of the crime, whether they are from as a part of money laundering or not. So here the director or any other officer not below the rank of the deputy director will have to note in writing that the so and so person is having the proceeds of the crime, and if we not provisionally attach that property, then it may be concealed or transferred to any other person, which may be, so thereafter it will be tedious work for the government to identify whether the property is the proceeds of the crime. And this provisional attachment is for 180 days. And a point to be noted here, that if there is any period of stay given by the court, then that particular time period plus additionally 30 days will be given for the provisional attachment. Basically it is 180 days if there is no stay given by the court, and if any stay is given by the court, then the period of the stay plus 30 days plus 180 days will be given for the provisional attachment. An important point here is the rights and the interest of the property shall not be affected. For example, it is a notice given by the director or the officer, then for example, if if a tenant is in the property for rent in the property, then he can still continue to be as a tenant, and the money from that property will be still be given to the landlord. But here the provisional attachment means he cannot transfer the property for this period unless it is proven that it is not involved in the proceeds of in the money laundering, that is process, it is not treated as a proceeds of the crime. Also here he need to forward a report. This report, it is recommendatory prior to the issuing of the order for the provisional attachment, but it is mandatory to issue to the adjudicating authority immediately after attachment. So here he need to forward a report stating that to the judiciary, stating that so and so person is having the process of the crime and we need to provisionally attach his property. But it is mandatory that the director or the deputy director who is provisionally attaching shall forward a report after attaching the property to the adjudicating authority. Reason being, adjudicating authority is the second level of authority who will be dealing with the case. So you can clearly see here that the report shall be sent within 30 days. Director or the officer need to file a complaint with the adjudicating authority as soon as after immediately forwarding the provisional attachment, the report and the provisional attachment. Then within 30 days the director or officer need to file a complaint with the adjudicating authority regarding this provisional attachment. After receipt of this report and the complaint from the director or officer, that is the deputy director, then adjudicating authority will serve a notice for calling upon the information, that is he will be giving a show cause notice and asking the person why this property shall not be treated as the proceeds of the crime and not involved in the money laundering. So the following information may be called upon: the source of income or the earnings, the evidence or the documentaries and other related documents, and show cause why to this property not to be treated as a property under money laundering. Then after updating information from the person who is treated as under money laundering and from the department, plus hearing the aggrieved party and the department shall order to release if he thinks that it is not involved in the money laundering. However, if the person who is suspected to be treated under the money laundering is not providing the information, then the adjudicating authority shall take the position of the property, that is confirming of the attachment. Here it is a provisional attachment and here it is the attachment of the property, and the possession will be taken by the government, that is the will be with the director itself, and this shall not exceed 365 days. It is 180 days, that is half of year, and it is a complete year. And the third step is the confiscation, that is trial by the special court. Once the possession is taken by the possession of the property is taken, then the special court will go through the case and then it will give an order stating if the property is involved in the money laundering, then order for the confiscation of the property. If not, release the property. What is meant by confiscation? Confiscation means vesting of the property with the government and free from all the encumbrances, which means the legal and the beneficial owner of the property shall now be the government, central government. However, if the special court is satisfied that the complaint suffered the loss due to money laundering and acted in good faith, order the restoration of the property so confiscated to such complaint. For example, if a property being taken away by a offense by the person suspect, for example, if A is a person who is a suspect and B is a person who is the beneficial owner, A taking B's property illegally, then the special court, after getting to know that the B has suffered the losses and he has acted in good faith, that is he has not taken any consideration from A, then he will resort the property to B. And here the important point is, when the confiscation is done, the property is vested with the government and it shall be free from all the encumbrances, that is all the liabilities. The property is free from all the liabilities. So we'll be discussing the next part in the next video, that is regarding the powers of the directors, the appellate tribunal, the special court, and the international PMLA and miscellaneous chapters. Don't forget to hit that bell icon. Please subscribe to this channel, and thank you.